Our first guest of the afternoon is Mr. Ben Mann, the CEO of Harmless Harvest. Thank you so much for being with me here on the Livestream studio.
Thanks for having me.
So this is your second BevNet Live?
This is, yes.
You were here last year in Santa Monica, a wee bit bigger than it was last year.
Yes.
Yeah. How are you navigating the show? How's the show going for you?
It's going awesome.
Yeah. I feel like this is one of those shows that I was just mentioning to you before. It's got to be a trip for brands, for those who are associated with Harmless Harvest, because one of the first times that I came to a BevNet Live, or I was with BevNet, and I saw Harmless Harvest, I was like, wow, this is such an innovative, cool, unique concept. HPPing, and now you're doing a little bit of a different safety mechanism for the coconut water, but such an innovative concept for coconut water. And now it's almost like you guys are old hat. You're like the big brother in this industry. What's it like? I mean, how do you stay innovative? How do you stay on top of things when you were once, the darling of the industry, and how do you stay the darling of the industry in so many ways?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. It is true. We are, for us, we are one of the more grown-up brands here, and so, the conversations are always very fun as you talk to young entrepreneurs who talk about, hey, I really like this idea, and I decided, why not? I should, this is pretty straightforward. I should do this, which always makes me chuckle a little bit because on the outside, coconut water looks pretty simple, right? But it's actually deceptively not so simple. As we think about it, and as I took over a year and a half ago, I think what's been very exciting is, we have an amazing core product in our coconut water that is demonstrably better than anything else. But what's really cool is we've really started to ramp up innovation, and part of our strategy is how do we use more of that coconut? And so, when we think about, how we look forward and innovation, to us, there's just so much untapped opportunity for us.
You mentioned you're a year and a half in. I imagine that the first 6 months were sort of just, getting a feel for how this company works on a day-to-day basis. And past that point, you're kind of putting your own stamp on how the organization operates. What are some of the things that you've tried to do on a personal level and company-wide to really affect how growth is achieved going forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was the first, I'd say, it's usually the first 2 or 3 months. You think you're going to take 4 or 5 months to really get to know everything, but it always gets fast-tracked a bit. But I would say the first 3 to 6 months was definitely just getting steeped in the business, and I had some early inclinations on what we needed to focus on, and those were largely right, not 100% right, of course. But as I've put my stamp on the organization, one of the things I really challenged the team this year is, how do we use more of that coconut? And we need to get to zero waste. So we still had coconuts going to the landfill when I took over the business. And what I'm excited to share is in the next week or two, we should be completely zero waste. So we are not only using the coconut for compost, or using the materials to build surfboards and things like that, but we're using more of the coconut meat to develop new products. We've got a lot of new products coming up starting in January. As well as we are now cutting down the coconuts, drying it, pressing them into wood pellets, so as a biofuel. And so that replaces petroleum-based fuels in the neighboring factories. So really excited about that.
That is incredible. A lot of brands would probably want to be, a lot of companies that produce beverage, a lot of beverage companies, we'll call them, would want to be a zero-waste company. What's the long-term sort of timeline for something like that? I mean, it's certainly not something that's going to happen overnight. What are some of the expectations that you had to put out there in terms of how you could achieve that?
Yeah, it was it was a twofold thing. One, from a supply chain standpoint, there's the mission aspect of just treating, how do we take this valuable resource and then make it at least some useful byproduct at its end, at the end of life for us. But then from an innovation standpoint is, how do we really think differently about our innovation and use more of the coconut? So, one of the great things about our coconut is it produces the best water for coconut water. But importantly, we harvest it somewhat young, so the meat is actually very smooth and gelatinous. And so it really lends itself to pureeing it up and making all sorts of great items. So, recently in the last several weeks, we launched our protein and coconut,
Right.
which is a plant-based smoothie that uses the coconut meat, but then combines it also with sunflower seed, pumpkin seed, and pea protein. So you get, a nice level of protein, a lower level of sugar, and just a nice, creamy texture that is from the actual coconuts that we're harvesting on a daily basis anyway. But as we move forward, we've got the dairy-free drinkable yogurt that's going national at Whole Foods in January. And then we're actually scooping the meat, freezing the meat, and then when in the U.S., we're making yogurt. So we launched spoonable yogurt in January. And so that is, taking a raw material and then processing it here. So just a fresher, much better yogurt.
BevNet exclusive here, or Nosh exclusive if you're paying attention to our food vertical. The spoonable yogurt's going to be at Fancy Food Show, I'm assuming, the Winter Fancy Food Show. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Can I unwrap that a little bit longer? I mean, it's interesting because we've seen coconut yogurts on the market.
Yeah.
It's challenging. It's a challenging ingredient to work with. A lot of times you'll see sort of a bubbling up, or it's just a challenging ingredient to keep fresh and not exploding. I didn't want to use the word explode, but I mean we've actually seen that. How have you nailed down that process on a safety level?
So we do it from a slightly different process. Most yogurts are actually made starting with a liquid. So if you make a dairy yogurt, you're starting with cow's milk or whatever it may be, almond milk, you name it, you're starting with a liquid. We actually are doing something very different. We're starting with the meat. So to get the backbone of the product, we actually take the fresh meat, grind it, and that becomes the backbone. And so you have a much more stable, you're not using all sorts of gums and stabilizers and starches and stuff like that to get the body. You're using the actual meat, which has, the MCTs in it, and it has, a good source of fiber. And then from, we've actually been piloting it for a while. We've invested a ton of capital and have had it in shelf life, so we're good in that regard.
You're becoming a platform brand, but not just for beverage. I mean, you mentioned the dairy-free smoothies, and then you launched the protein line. By the way, the toasted coconut protein, Harmless Harvest protein, is phenomenal.
Really
congratulations on that. But becoming a food and beverage company now, that's not the easiest thing to do, to sort of market both yogurt and 3 lines of beverages. How do you prepare for something like that?
Yeah, it's, one of the things, we step back and think about what do we stand for as a mission and right now as a brand, and we buy this very valuable resource, this coconut, and I think, it would not be responsible for us if we just only use part of it and disposed of the rest. For us, it's important to really more fully utilize that coconut. And so it lends itself certainly to beverages, and so we have a number of beverages, both current that we've put into market as well as things coming in the pipeline where we actually use that puree. But importantly, it also lends itself to the plant-based dairy side, and that is just a great way to use our resource. And we've had the dairy-free drinkable yogurt out actually for the past year, and it's done really, really well with very limited exposure and very limited support. So now when we bring both of them together and bring the marketing wherewithal that we have, we're really, really excited about it. And what's really important, and it's something, one of the themes that we have here at BevNet Live is, really having a demonstrably better product, one that really, just tasting it speaks for itself. And, that not only the dairy-free drinkable yogurt, but also the spoonable yogurt that we're about to launch, both of them are hands down really just amazing products.
How do you sort of communicate that to consumers? Because people know Harmless Harvest coconut water, and they know what that brand is all about, a super high quality liquid. How do you communicate what you're trying to do with line extensions, brand extensions, not just to your core consumers, but to new ones that you're trying to bring into the brand?
Yeah, certainly there are things from a packaging standpoint and communication standpoint that you can demonstrate, both just from the artisan and the craft and the things like that, and just how you make your yogurt that's very different, right? And starting with fresh coconut meat versus taking a liquid that's already been processed once and then processing it again. So, there are things you can do like that. But in this case, there's so much noise from a marketing standpoint. The proof really is in the pudding. This is one of those things where you really have to sample a lot more. And it was, certainly some of the case studies that were even brought up this morning by Kavu about, demos and the importance of those and how you actually structure those and just going, aggressive in some key customers and stuff like that. That will be the backbone of this. You just have to get it in people's hands, and you got to get people to try it. And once they try it, it's actually quite remarkable. And we see it already, just even with buyers. And as we've tested with some consumers, we did a test, and we did it blinded with consumers. And I think we had 30 consumers trying. And I've never seen this before. Unanimously, every single person picked ours. So they didn't know that they were picking ours, but we were pretty excited. We think we have something amazing.
Well, I guess the proof is in the yogurt, so to speak.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Ben, this has been great. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. Appreciate it, and hope to catch up again at the Winter Fancy Food Show.
Sounds great.
Fantastic. Hey, it's Ray Latif with Taste Radio. If you like what you just saw, hit subscribe and ding the bell. You'll be happy you did.